Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cosmic Weather for November of 2022. Holy moly, we're already through 2022 practically. Okay, let's settle in here. There's a big message that wants to come through. It's been bugging me all morning, and a couple of housekeeping things that I want to remind you of. One, I am going to be putting out more videos on YouTube and Instagram, so just expect to see my face more. I got the ping. There's different types of messages that I was instructed to put out. And so I'm going to go ahead and start doing that here soon. Stay tuned if you feel like you're interested, if you want to receive some more messages and guidance. The other thing that I want to update you on that I have not shared is that I am adding VIP seats to the Nightery for those who want more of a holistic mastermind experience. If you want to do bi-weekly calls and have full Voxer like my regular mastermind structure, then those are going to be available. There are only 5 spots for that. So I'm keeping it limited to 5. And then the regular Nightery Voxer room has a higher capacity. So both are going to be available if you want to do the VIP seat or if you just want to do the regular Nightery. Either one will be available. It's a great time to get holiday support, get started as we move into the new year. This is a great time to work with me if you want to sharpen up your practices, all of that good stuff. So keep in mind the Nightery, while of course I love manifestation, that is my thing, it's a whole quality of life container. So we really focus on just what do you desire to enhance in your own life, and let's do it. Let's make it happen. That's the simplest way I can put it. My desire, the biggest desire of my heart, I've been really connected with my mission lately, and I want to make it really clear that my entire purpose on this planet is to help people live good lives. Simply put, I just want you to feel fantastic. I want you to live the best life imaginable. I want you to have the time of your life. I want you to feel good about where you're at, no matter where you are, and for you to feel your true potential in this life. So if I can be a part of that, amazing. You're more than welcome to work with me however you see fit. But yeah, more to come. And also, there's going to be more stuff that I'm putting out. This was another thing that came to me in meditation recently, is just I need to create, get it out, create, get it out, create, get it out. Because sometimes things have a tendency to die on the vine because I don't make them fast enough. And so I've just been getting the pull to just make more stuff. Put out more classes. So if you want to get notified when my next goodie drops, make sure you get on my newsletter or you follow me on Instagram at rev.sydney.fin. So that is all of the housekeeping for now. Let me get into the zone here for this message, and then we will dive into it. If I were to give November a title, it would be the universe can only meet you as far as you're willing to meet yourself. So the biggest thing that's coming up for the vast majority of you who are listening to this is how often, you may not realize it, but one of the things that has potentially been, mucking with you is how often you're actually getting fear, you're operating from a place of fear. And the reason why I'm putting it this way is because it's sneaky. It's sneaky. It's the little micro thoughts that you have where it's like, oh, I want that, but it's too expensive. And really, what is the subtext of that? What's the subtext of that? It's, I'm afraid that I'm being financially irresponsible, or I'm afraid that I'm going to run out of money, or I'm afraid. Now, don't get me wrong. We've all got our financial limits, right? There's always more to experience financially. But this is about looking at and evaluating how chronic are these micro thoughts in any area of your life. I want to tell this person how I feel, but I'm afraid. I want to open my heart, but I can't. I really want that, or I really want to make a living doing this thing, but I'm scared. What if I can't actually make money doing that? Or what if it doesn't? What if it's not the right career choice, right? So the what if and then pointing in the negative trajectory, that's fear running you, basically. And I mean, what else would it be if you're saying this is a full body yes desire of mine? If that's really true for you, and then you're following it up with all of this fear around getting hurt or disappointment, there's been a lot of subtle limitation that has been really kicked up lately. And I think for many of you, there's been an element of it on autopilot. Like you're just kind of letting it, or you've just kind of acclimated to this low grade fear. Remember, this isn't terror. No one's asking you to go bungee jumping. This isn't about big risks. This isn't a go big kind of month necessarily. This is about how often have you been capping yourself through a subtle fear of getting hurt, fear of disappointment, fear of some way of perceiving yourself, fear of all type of risk. Because it's one thing to just be able to assess risk in a way that keeps you safe and healthy and whole. That's one thing. That keeps you in good balance with your nervous system. That's one thing. And then it's another to just be in this chronic low-grade aversion of your own desires and muting and dulling your own desires out of fear of, what if I get hurt? And that is where you are stunting yourself, you're capping yourself out, and you're limiting what the universe can bring you. Money is a really good example with this. So I might end up using a lot of money examples as we go through this. Since we all work with money, it'll make sense to the most people. Let's say you want more money and you also are afraid of losing money. Well, the universe is only going to be able to meet you at the quantity that you're not afraid of losing, basically. So the universe actually has to contort itself to meet you through all of these jacked up perceptions about money and energy and what you have the capacity to receive. It has to meet you in this dark alley in order to give you these itty bitty teeny weeny amounts of money. Or another way to look at it is, let's say you do want a good amount of money, or there are big things that you want, and maybe you do have a somewhat good relationship with money, but you have really big goals. And if you're doing that same thing where you're like, oh, but I don't know if I could handle it, or I don't know if I would be afraid of losing it all, or I would be afraid of or I'm afraid of this type of financial risk or whatever. It's like you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I want a big booming economic experience, but then also fear holding the amount of energy of the big booming economic experience. Because if you're holding yourself in the position where it's like, yeah, I want the money, but I also simultaneously don't trust myself with it, well, the universe has to meet you at the place where wherever you're capped with your own self-trust. And so many of you, in so many different ways, are continually adding these limits for yourself, and it's preventing you from moving up into these major league spaces where you want to be playing. And it's like you're not graduating out of this pee-wee field. Like the universe has to be like, okay, Here's this pole, and I'm just going to gently put the ball on this pole, and you can hit it off the pole because that's all you can handle. That's all you're ready for. And that's what happens when you're constantly in this space of like, oh, I want that butt. I want that butt. I want to do that butt. I want to do that, but I have all of these horrible doubts and fears and da 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 da. I want to, but not yet. I want to, but not yet. And it's like, understand that the things that you desire will never not come with a certain level of risk. There's a certain level of risk with everything. And so how often have you been in this space of leaning more in the direction of limit than in the direction of aligning to your desire? This doesn't even mean, and this is the other thing that I want to make really clear. This does not mean you have to take some type of radical action. Not even. All that it requires is that you stop buying in to the idea that things are going to go sideways, that things are going to work against you. You have to get yourself to the point where the weight of positive expectation is heavier than negative expectation. That's the thing. That's the thing. Many of you have acclimated to a low grade expectation of things are not going to work out, or that's a little bit too much, or I can't go that big quite yet. And really what you haven't realized is, even though it's not putting the fear of God in you, it's enough to really do some damage in the sense that it's preventing you from going fast. And this is what I mean when I was making the Pee Wee League reference. It's like the universe is going to handle you with kid gloves if you act like you need kid gloves. Right? The universe is going to start handing you Monopoly money. Right? Like maybe you're like given small opportunities or small amounts of money, or maybe you even have some resentment about how small things have been. Or maybe it's like you get one good date, but not more than that. It's just this thing that you're doing in your mind where the guarding of the heart and the guarding around risk and the guarding around is the problem. Because that's pulling you out of alignment with your desire. When people say you need to act as if you have it, that can sometimes be bad advice. Like just in terms of, people can like pressure each other into doing things that are misaligned from this. Well, you need to act like you have it, so you need to da-da-da. That's too extreme. But let's really think about the perception and the mental body of you if you already had the thing. That's a better way to use that tool. Okay, so if you, in your mind only, if you already had that thing, or if you knew it was going to go well, if you knew you were going to get everything that you wanted, how would you feel? How would you think? What would be the perception of you? What would future self you that already has it, what advice would it give present time you? How would it be guiding you? Right? So that's what people mean when they're like, act as if. Act as if internally, mentally, emotionally, energetically. And again, it's not, you don't need to be, and I've seen this quite a lot recently actually, like people using that as a pressure tactic to make a sale. Okay. So it's like, no. You don't necessarily have to be acting in terms of action. It's more of an internal acting. okay, is where it starts. It starts in the mind. It starts in the heart. It starts in the emotions. And think about this as being all encompassing. When you are talking to someone that you love or that you're romantically involved with, like, go there into the depths of the relationship and ask yourself, like, how would the highest aspect of me in this love relationship be holding themselves? How would my nervous system feel? How relaxed would I be? How much composure could I have? How well could I articulate myself in this situation? How well could I communicate even in the face of something intense? It's a great question to prompt yourself with. Like, just for accessing more of the feeling states. So for some of you, you're just being called to that, where it's like, go there in your mind, go there in your emotions. Just go there first. See what happens. Let yourself dream a little bit. Let yourself entertain more of the what if it goes well. Play there a little bit more. Others of you are just not letting yourself go to where you want to go. Where it's like, okay, yeah, you are perfectly capable of, yes, doing that thing where you're taking the action. We're done playing make-believe, like it's time for you to floor it. So some of you are in that position, and it's like you've done the groundwork, you've done the foundational work, you are thinking in a way that is more supportive to what you want. You are holding your energetic composition and your emotional body in a position that you want it to be in. You're doing all of that stuff, and now it's like, okay, there is a deeper level of accessing the inspired actions, the truest, the deepest and truest layers of your own desires. You've got to let yourself go into that and then move in the direction of them. And being willing to do that is really, really key in November. If you've been doing the internal game a lot in recent months or however long, and then as soon as like a possible opportunity shows up or something for you to do shows up, you shy away from it, it's time. It's time. You've got to take the opportunities when it feels like a yes. And this is where people get really confused by the idea of fear. Is there is some level of fear that is like this intuition guiding you away from things. And then there's a whole other type of fear that is you playing out negative worst case scenarios in your mind. You're making up all of this stuff that has not happened, all of these negative potentials that is constantly capping you. So even though good opportunities are coming in, and it, again, you feel the tingle of the desire activated within you, you start entertaining those negative timelines and talk yourself out of it. That's different. So this is the distinction that I really want to make. Because some fear that you want to trust as a means to get away from something is like, if you feel icky, like, ugh, get me out of there. It feels like cold and scary. Like if you were to walk into a building that was just terrifying or full of people who were really, really scary, right? You would want to run out of the building. It's like, yeah, listen to that. That's your intuition. That's your knowing. If you get this like off feeling where you're like, no, something isn't right. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. If you feel a full body sensation that something is wrong, listen, right? Because then that's your intuition communicating to you. However, if it's, I want that so bad, that's it. That's a yes. Your desires are yeses. The desires of your heart are yes, 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 yes. Follow me, follow me, follow me, follow me, follow me. Like that's where it's pulling you. And then if you go, but what if it doesn't work out? What if he doesn't like me? What if okay, if you start doing that, now things are going sideways just from the trajectory of your mind and what you're entertaining in your mind. The desire is right. The desire is yes. Yes. When you have a desire that you want, your soul goes, thumbs up, green light. Good. Great. Yes, you get to have that. But the fear of getting hurt, that's where everything cuts in and it muddies the water. And then you'll start getting confused about, well, what am I really supposed to do? Because I'm feeling afraid. But it's like, again, what are you actually afraid of? If it's, I'm afraid of getting hurt, there's work to do around your mental body and your beliefs. If it's, that makes me feel icky, that's your instincts, that's your intuition worth listening to. Your job is to be able to identify, what am I afraid of? And when you answer, what am I afraid of? That is going to, if it's, this doesn't feel right, I can't even describe it. It almost defies language. Like you might not even have language for it. It's just a no. Listen to that. Or I don't feel good when I'm around these people. Or whatever. You know, that's worth paying attention to. And the other place where you want to be investigating is the fear that I am feeling or the threads of worst case scenarios that I'm, you know, I don't want to be anticipating, but I'm doing that thing. Okay, well, if you do go into that, is that something that you're not willing to risk? Because that can also happen. This is another nuance of navigating fear. Is, well, if the worst case scenario is something that you could not handle and it would break you, it would actually break you, don't do it. Don't do it. Wait, stop. Don't do it. You're not ready. You're not ready. You're not ready. You're not ready. And that's okay. That's how I was in my love relationship for a long, long time. I was like, if I put my heart on the line right now, I will spontaneously combust. It, like, this will break me. If I do this, I can't. And so I didn't. I only took as much risk as I could handle, proportionate to where I was at. So this is where you want to understand risk will continue to be involved in every area of your life. It's going to be involved in your career. It's going to be involved in your finances. It's going to be involved in personal projects that you have going on. It's going to be involved in family. It's going to be involved in your relationships. It's going to be involved with everything. You will not be able to avoid the perceived risk. You're just not going to. Risk is going to permeate every area of your life because that's what comes with growth. And also understand that risk is like what makes something exciting. It's kind of like, here's a good analogy. Let's say you apply to your dream program or your dream school. Well, the risk is being rejected. But what if it goes well? What if you get in? Then the reward, it's like the reward of things working out in the face of risk. Oh man, that's where life just gets real good. Because if you are able to identify within yourself, this is a risk that, like, I'm ready for major leagues here. And here's another thing that I should mention. When I'm comparing Major League and Pee Wee, there are places where I've stayed in the Pee Wee League for ages, okay? Like when I tell you in my love life, I could not handle anything beyond Pee Wee League for years. So it's not wrong. It's not wrong. Don't shame yourself if you're like, I've been in Pee Wee League for so long. Tell me about it. I've done that too. But then there's also areas where you're really desiring to grow and expand, and you do want to go big, and the things that you're wanting are really big. And it's like the universe will only be able to meet you at the level of willingness you have to know and believe that things will work out in your favor, even though there's also a risk. That's where things get really, really fun. Is like, this is a big risk and maybe it doesn't make any sense and maybe it's a little crazy, but I believe it's going to work out anyway. When you can take yourself there, life will get really good. Because again, don't take risks that are going to break you. Don't do that to yourself. That's jacked up. There's no reason to do that. But I also think it's like we want to find this sweet spot where there's a little bit of pressure, there's a little bit of risk, like we're stretching ourselves a little bit more. We're venturing into that territory where we haven't been going, but we want to because we know the goods are in there as well. That's what this month is about, is like, okay, go deeper with yourself. Go a little bit further with yourself. When it comes to the worst case scenario happening, the funny thing that I've found with worst case scenarios is they are worse in the mind. Have you ever noticed this? Like, oh my God, I've built it up so bad in my head. And when I actually get to the reality of it, it's not that bad. If I actually experience the worst case scenario, it's not even a big deal. But the mind blows it out of proportion. Okay, here's the next piece. What you want to look at in November is, where do you want to go deeper with yourself? Where can you meet yourself deeper? Because understand, the universe will meet you there, right? The deeper the desire and the deeper your belief and knowing in it, the universe can meet you there, right? But the deeper in fear, it's like, well, the universe is going to meet you there too. It's going to meet you at your energetic composition. So this is going to look differently for everyone. And it's all going to depend on like what area of life is really active for you. Where is this showing up the most for you? Is it something that is a conversation that needs to be had? Is it a risk in vulnerability and in opening your heart? Is it there's a financial risk in terms of like quitting a job that you know you need to quit, or applying for a job that is way out of your league, or investing in something that you know is like going to be life-changing, but it's also a financial risk. Maybe it's committing to your body and your health and your overall well-being in a new way. Maybe it's experimentation. Maybe it's cutting some things out that you know, like you intuitively know need to go, right? That's a risk. Oh, this reminds me. A friend of mine is talking about quitting smoking. And I was talking to her a little bit about the forecast for November. And it didn't even come to my mind, but she immediately was like, oh, quitting smoking. I was like, oh, okay. But that can be a risk, right? Think about how many social relationships are wrapped up in smoking. And if you know it's time to release that, or some other habit where you're like, I know that this is actually tampering with my field. And so now it's time for me to release that part of it and just embrace embrace this next iteration or this next stage of my evolution. November is going to be huge for so many of you because it's really having you look at your fears. Like in terms of what are you actually afraid of? Have you been letting fear run you more than your desires? Uh-oh. Who have you allowed yourself to be in all of these different areas, right? Are you acting as if in terms of your mind and your emotions and your nervous system? And then for some of you, taking it deeper, taking it into that action that is going to be an extension of where you've calibrated energetically. You're looking and surveying quite a lot this month. And it's going to be, if you're listening to this and I'm telling you, like, is this a risk that is actually a desire? Like, is there a desire that you are then introducing the fear and you're confusing yourself? Because it's like, well, anytime you entertain a worst case scenario, you understand you're going to feel bad. Every time. It's like if you want to guarantee that you're going to talk yourself out of it and entertain a lot of fear-based thoughts because that's just how it works. Like you're going to scare yourself into no way, I can't do it. But this is why you want to really look at what is the truest. You want to meet yourself at the deepest layer within yourself when it comes to your desires. Like that is the piece that is going to, that's the North Star. I've said that for a long time. And when we're talking about, it's not just money or it's not just an awesome relationship. Like it's also your evolution. It's who you become. It's how you think. It's how you act. It's how you feel in your body. There's all sorts of aspects of your own evolution that develop on the road to the things that you want. And so this is just lighting a fire underneath you. Like, have you been in this contracted state of, well, I can't do that? Because that's where we want to come back to. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Again and again and again. Go there. Let yourself fully understand that you can expand into anyone and anything. That's the piece that is missing here. Is that there is something about these old fragments of you that are kind of kicking up dust, where it's like you're gonna have to just step into the new pair of shoes. Oh, more. Okay, this is something that came to me, but I forgot to write it down. The idea of fake it until you make it was something that came through. And so let's talk about that for a second. This is a concept that I consider to be highly misunderstood because there is an element of when you are practicing something new, when you're practicing a new belief, when you're practicing a new sense of self, or when you're practicing, there's a part of it that doesn't feel totally natural yet. And this is where people get really confused or like, I am thinking about it, and because it's not authentic and because it's not natural, then that means it's not true or it's not working, or fake it until you make it doesn't work. And it's like, okay, let's clear all of this up. You have to give yourself time to practice. And there are some things that are going to take a minute for you to practice and get comfortable with, and that's probably going to give you the sensation of it's not authentic or it's not legit. And I want to reassure you that there's a sweet spot, and you can tell by whether or not you believe in your own practice. So if you're trying to do something, right, or if you're wanting to evolve in whatever direction, more open-hearted, more abundant, more grounded, more conscientious of how you take care of yourself. Any of those things can feel unfamiliar, but you want to stretch into just enough where you feel like you're stretching, but not so far to the point where you're not feeling it. So you can feel it when the energy dies inside, when you get that kickback of now. When you get that, you've gone too far. And it's this internal sensation that you'll feel, like if you've ever slammed on the brakes really, really hard in a car and you get that kickback, that's what it feels like internally. When you are going way outside, money is another good example of this. You want more money, and you try to say, I'm a billionaire. And then there's just this sour sensation that comes because it's just so far beyond what you can actually feel into in a full body kind of way, that's where that kickback occurs. And so it's like you just want to put yourself in a position where, yes, you're practicing something that is going to feel foreign in the beginning. It will. It's going to feel foreign. But it's also a part of your evolution as well. So the point is, your evolution, if we said that in order for you to be authentic, you have to stay the same forever, nobody is built to stay the same forever. We're meant to evolve. We're meant to change. And so what we're talking about is conscientious change, intentional change, focused change. And so if you're going to do that in a way where you're proud of the end result of who you're becoming, then pretty much everything is going to be a risk once again. Even something like practicing a thought that you want to step into more, even if there is, maybe a little bit of, I don't know about this, or like, this is just new. It's a new feeling. If that's something that you're practicing, that's a risk. Acting as if, whether you're taking action or not, is a risk. Thinking new thoughts, that's a risk. Practicing new skills that you've never tried before, that's a risk. And when I was reflecting on this today, pretty much every stage of my life has included risk. Like when I think about, even this YouTube channel or this podcast, like way, way, way back in the day, it was, it came from the risk of quitting my job and the risk of starting a YouTube channel, and then the risk of, just trusting that my business was going to support me and pay all of my bills. Like that was a huge risk. The risk of in 2019, it's like I gutted the very aspect of my business that was my biggest moneymaker. It's a huge risk. Getting this house was a risk. Everything, every time I look at what I've created, it's like all of it was a risk. My love life, that's a risk. That's full of risk. And so when you start realizing aligned risk is where it's at, risk where your desire is dominant and your trust in the universe is dominant, that's the perfect risk. When you're practicing something intentionally in the direction that you want to move, even if it feels like a new pair of shoes that you're trying to break in, that's the type of evolution that you want. You don't have to just evolve, like just whatever life gives you is the direction that you evolve. That's crappy. Nobody wants to do that. You want to be in charge of who you become. And so that is what November is really setting you up for. It's having you look at all of these things. And how often have you been, operating from this energetic field of contraction and fear of disappointment and holding back? And like, how often have you been doing that rather than allowing yourself to move with the energy of your own alignment and what feels good? And again, the desires are the North Star. It's going to pull you forward. So I believe that's it. I'm just tuning in and seeing if there's anything else. As you're moving through November, explore your fears, get curious with them. Don't just buy into them. If you have a fear-based thought, when you're paying attention to your thinking, don't get crazy with it. Like, I can't have that thought. That's so bad. Don't do that. That's just chill. But look at what is this? What is this communicating to me? Just explore it. Get curious with it. It's information. It's information about where your beliefs are at. Sometimes it might be intuitive information to, hey, steer clear of that. Sometimes it's just practice thought forms. Sometimes it's, you really want something, but maybe it is really high risk. Maybe it's just like this really big thing that you want, and the level of risk and vulnerability involved with it are just massive, right? Like all of that can be true. So allow yourself to investigate the composition of where is my desire in all of this? And what is this fear really? And just explore, investigate, be curious about fear. Be curious. This is not the time to just buy into every thought. I mean, we never want to do that, but particularly in November, it's like, what's this about? What's this about? Where am I not trusting? Where am I not believing in myself? Or where am I not moving in the direction of my desires? Have I been putting myself in this energy of complacency? Let yourself ask the questions and let yourself look at what you're dealing with. All right, friends. Have an excellent month. I love you all. Thanks for hanging out. If there is anything that you need, if you want to get into the Nightery, make sure you go apply. Link is in the description box or the show notes. And I hope you have a fantastic November. Let me know how it goes. And I will talk to you so soon. Have a good one.